I probably could have sent my clone to this podcast.
It's like this idea of immortality where people can sort of live forever.
Our main focus right now are like coaches, experts, creators, CEOs, people who are super busy and want to scale themselves. The experience with the human is the best case scenario. Just not everyone is willing to pay that money.
It's very new, and this guy's already making $8K a month. Just wow.
Other people will now be able to access for you at a much lower cost.
I might give it a shot. It's pretty incredible where we're headed here with AI.
Start with the background. Originally from Houston, Texas. I studied physics and computer science in college, and then immediately worked at an AI company called C3 AI. And this was applying AI to the enterprise. So like oil and gas companies, finance companies, defense tech companies. And while I was at C3, GPT-3 came out, and I was kind of working on NLP at C3. So this was kind of like the next evolution of NLP. So I left C3 and started my first company, which was called Friday. It was an AI assistant for shopping. So you could text a phone number and be like, hey, I want a brown corduroy jacket. This is my size. This is my budget. Go and buy it for me. And it would buy it for you. And while I was working on that startup, I was reading a book about my grandfather, and I wanted to be able to talk to him for advice because I was a solo founder and I was trying to figure out, what the hell I should do. So I created a clone of him using his book and kind of treated it as my own personal mentor. And Friday got acquired, and I moved to Miami to work at Open Store. But this idea of letting people clone themselves kind of really stuck with me. So I met my co-founder at Open Store. We started a book club where we started to create clones of the authors of all the books we were reading in book clubs so that we could all learn from them directly.
Wait, you mean you actually have a book club that you actually go to and talk about books and not just drink wine like my wife does?
Yeah, no wine.
Okay.
It's in the Open Store office. So that
All
wouldn't
right.
be, Keith was okay with the book club without the wine.
All right.
So yeah, Sam and I left to start Delphi, which is a digital cloning platform that allows people to create a clone of themselves that can speak like them, that can think like them, so that people can access them when they're busy. It really helps people scale their influence, their knowledge, and their time to as many people as possible.
Awesome. Is your grandpa, did you do it because he passed away, or is he still around, or like what was the motivation there?
So he passed away.
Mhm.
He was a big entrepreneur in Iran before the revolution, and he's someone I always looked up to. So I wanted to be able to, talk to him and learn from him and apply his wisdom to my life. And I think that apply part is really important because with Delphi, we're not just trying to capture just what you know and do like a basic Q&A bot. We're also trying to capture how you think, because when people ask you for advice or your perspective, it's applied wisdom. It's not just copy paste wisdom.
Got it. Yeah, it's very interesting. Like AI girlfriends and things like that have really gained a lot of traction lately. Like you see that all over YouTube. No one really talks about talking to someone that's passed away. Like my dad passed away when I was 10 years old, and I've thought about like trying to like get all the information I have on him and like clone him, and like it's got to be very, I don't know, like weird and amazing all at the same time. So that's something that your tool can help with. You already did it with your grandfather, but it's like this idea of immortality where people can sort of live forever in their consciousness by what data you have about them in the past. So I might give it a shot. It's pretty incredible where we're headed here with AI.
Yeah, we didn't start with the death tech market just
Hmm.
because it's like a tough market to start and try to go horizontally. So while we do have customers who are using it for that, our main focus right now are like coaches, experts, creators, CEOs, people who are super busy and want to scale themselves.
Yeah, awesome. How many people are in your company? You're the founder, correct? Or is there a co-founder?
Co-founder and CEO. I met my co-founder at Open Store. He's the CTO, and we're 7 people now, and we're based in San Francisco, fully in person. I hate remote work, so it's good to all be here.
Yeah, I think it's definitely overrated being at home all the time. So
Yeah.
need to get out and talk to people. So, like, how would it work in terms of, someone comes to your site, they want to clone themselves, and maybe you could go over why someone would want to clone themselves first. But once they do decide that they want to do that, how does it work in terms of them like getting onboarded, and how does it work in terms of uploading all the documents Is it easy? Is it hard? How does it work for the end user?
Yeah, so I'll start with the why, and
Mhm.
the why for the demand side of the curve is pretty obvious. You're a consumer, and only people with a lot of money or people in tight networks have access to the kind of personalized expertise that that could change your life. And Bloom's Two Sigma shows that private tutoring increases your ability to learn by two standard deviations. Not everyone can access this kind of tutoring. Not everyone can learn from like Keith Rabois or Balaji or Naval or any of the world's greatest thinkers. So on the demand side, it's really democratizing access to expertise, personalized expertise. And for the supply side, a lot of these people get the same questions over and over again. So one, it allows them to scale their time. Two, a lot of people create content and that content is passively consumed. You read it once and you think about how it applies to your life and that's it. The thing about having a clone, it's like interactive, personalized content consumption, where every time I come, it's almost different because my life circumstances are a little different and the bits and pieces that might resonate are are going to pop up differently depending on where I am in life. So that's another way to look at it. Finally, we have a lot of people who maybe will charge a certain amount of money for an in-person meeting, and they charge a lot less for like a subscription to their clone. So it's proving to be an entirely new revenue stream for some of these clone creators.
Cool. And for the clone, like once you create the clone, and then say if someone has a subscription to your clone, how does it look? Is someone like, are you talking to an avatar? Is it all chat based text? How does it work for the end user?
So we have chat and voice.
Hmm.
The chat could be in the form of SMS, WhatsApp, Slack, Discord, Instagram, and then voice, you can call them and have a real time conversation. We'll be releasing video probably in April this year.
So you video, like, meaning, like, if I wanted to clone myself, I would up like the AI model would learn about video that I upload, like what I look like and things like that, and then it would sort of like move my lips to whatever words the AI is saying at the time. Is that how it would work?
Yeah, so as of right now, I probably could have sent my clone to this podcast,
That would be
and
amazing.
you could have spoken to him, but you would not
Yeah.
be able to see him. At, at a certain point, it's my face and it's my clone talking, but it's not actually me.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to do that one day. Do a podcast with a clone. That's a great idea. And the last time we spoke, you said that one of the big use cases is for like property managers. So like a property manager is someone, for someone that's not familiar with real estate, is, you have a house and you're renting it out to people, and the people are going to call somebody to get, if their toilet's broke or something like that, they're going to call somebody, and that's the property manager to fix the toilet. Well, this would be a great tool for that, because you could have the clone be the property manager, and it would save you a ton of time and headaches. Because most of the times, for real estate at least, is if a problem does happen, a lot of times you can talk it through, talk the renter through over the phone, like how to fix things, rather than send someone there that's going to cost $200 an hour for a plumber in this example. So it's a huge time saving. Are there any other thing, if you want to elaborate on that, that's cool. But is there anything
Yeah.
other than that that you see people doing with your tool?
Well, I think the idea of you know, scaling yourself to your customers who have questions that you've already answered and your clone being able to guide them towards a solution is pretty powerful. And like I have my clone in the clone studio of every customer who's creating a clone, and that has saved me so much time. They're like wondering, okay, how can I improve the personality, or like how can I improve the voice? And my clone handles all these conversations, and that's kind of relevant to the real estate developers who maybe have to answer all these questions for tenants. So I've talked about the coaches and the experts, but also just business owners who get a lot of the same questions from employees or customers can leverage this to save that inbound.
Yeah, and my wife and I were trying to start a coffee shop over the last year. It didn't work out, but we had some consultants and mentors, and this would be a great tool for someone like them, because they charge. Some people can charge 200, $300 an hour, or $100 an hour, but that's a lot of that might be a low cost for them, but it's a high cost for the person that actually needs the advice. So this is like a happy in between, because the person that's charging a lot of money, say 200, $300 an hour to consult somebody, they don't have the time to do it, but they still want paid, and they can just like create their clone and do it for them. So like, for example, we spoke with a lot of coffee shop owners, and we paid them to do that. But they could have just sent their clone to me, and that probably would have been just as good. It's like, it's a great use case.
Yeah, and one thing that I wanted to point out is that this isn't meant to replace humans entirely, because I think
Mhm.
some people might say, hey, isn't this going, if you're a consultant or if you do charge per hour, some people might say, hey, isn't this gonna kind of ruin my business? I personally think the experience with the human is the best case scenario. Just not everyone is willing to pay that money. So the people who are willing to pay that money, you'll still get, because they're willing to pay that money to sit with you. And other people will now be able to access for you at a much lower cost.
Right, like the people that, say, again, back to that example, $200 an hour, that might be completely out of someone's, price range, and they would never,
Yeah,
ever do it, but
they
if
never
they can
think about
pay
it.
they never think about it, but if they
Yeah,
subscribe for $50 a month or whatever the person's charging, or $20 a month or whatever it is, that's in the ballpark, so it's like you
yeah.
open up this whole customer base for people. Are there any, like, applications that you've seen people use your tool? I mean, you're very new, but have you seen any applications, that sort of surprised you, like, on how people have used it?
I've been surprised with some of the usage on some of these clones. Like we have one guy who's like an accountability coach, and he has created like a bunch of different memberships around his clone, and he's making like 8K a month, which is pretty substantial for a coach. Um,
Like, how long have you been around? Sorry to interrupt, but
we launched our product publicly in December. We've had private beta users since like September.
okay, so it's new, it's very new, and this guy's already making 8K a month. Just wow.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
other people are using it as like a lead gen tool. You know, you connect it to Zapier, someone talks to your clone because it's like, okay, what can I learn from this person? And, they can set it up with their whole marketing stack. Some people just use it as like a, hey, get to know me. This is on my landing page. This is who I am. I recently tried it as an experiment for dating purposes. Like, hey, I'm single. Here's my clone if you want to get to know me, and we'll see how that goes.
That's amazing. Like, how did you even do that? Like, through Zapier too? Or, like, how does that work?
I just posted for the dating use case. I just
Yeah.
posted on Twitter, and I was like, "Hey, I'm single. I don't have time to go on dating apps. Talk to my clone if you want to get to know my values and who I am."
Yeah, it's like speed dating on steroids there, right? Like, post your clone on Twitter or X and then find out, if 1,000 girls look at it and, one of them has the same personality that you like, then maybe that's a a new way to date. It's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think that transitions to another use case that people are finding value in, and that's the analytics. So for the dating use case, it's kind of obvious. In the analytics, I can understand, who are the people that maybe I would like based on like what they're talking about.
Mhm.
For authors or content creators, they can see what is the content that is really resonating with my audience, or like what are the questions that keep getting asked over and over again. And it kind of helps you plan out how you should communicate with your clients or your audience, or how you should create new content in the future.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point. Like, so on your platform, if you create a mentorship or mentor of yourself, or for any use case, really, can you go in and see all those conversations with your clone? Like the people that have had conversations with your clone?
Yeah, on the higher tier, right now it's fully anonymized, just
Hmm.
because some people, we want to protect the privacy of the consumers. We're trying to find ways in which we can make it unanonymized and let the consumer know that, like, hey, if you're having these chats, the clone owner may see these chats, which some people may want. But in the case of like coaching, for example, or like therapy, some of that stuff is very personal, and
Right.
people may not want that data to be shared.
Got it. Well, the good news is, like, I think it's kind of obvious that you're talking to a clone, like, if you're gonna use the tool. So
Yeah,
it's not like someone's calling you on the phone and it sounds like a real human and you don't know it's a clone.
we're not trying to trick people.
So it's like privacy doesn't matter as much, maybe, in this case, because you know that data is being shared. I don't know. That's how I would feel, at least.
Yeah, so I think we'll get to a point where we can unanonymize it.
Definitely. Um, and there's a lot of magic that goes behind the scenes to make your product work. How does the bot or how does your tool learn about the person? Like, is it, do you upload just any kind of document you can, videos? Like, it seems like you guys are just want the more data, the better. But how do you get that data to train the clones on?
Yeah, so right now it's more optimized for people who have written a lot. Like I created my clone using my Notion because I write a lot in my Notion. People
Mhm.
can upload their blogs, their YouTube channels, their Twitter, their podcasts, Google Drive, books. we have an integration with pretty much anything. One feature that we're working on in the next couple of weeks is interview mode, and that's where your clone will ask you questions where there are gaps in its knowledge. So that way
Wow, that's
it
cool.
becomes easier for anyone to create a clone. Like if I don't, my mom or my dad, for example, may not write a lot, but maybe if they're asked the right questions, the clone can get better and better over time, and eventually they have a clone.
It could ask you questions the entire time the clone exists, right? Like a year from now, it might be like, well, I don't know this, so I'm going to ask.
Yeah, so it'll look in like its brain and like where the gaps are, maybe some questions that it got that it couldn't answer, and it'll ask those questions.
Do you have any competitors out there? And if you do, like, what's some of the differentiators between yourself, and other companies? And that brings up a better point. Actually, is it seems like these big players like OpenAI and Microsoft and Nvidia, like almost are going to have a monopoly over this whole AI space. Is that something you fear as a business owner? Because I'm trying to start my own AI app, and that's something I think about all the time. Like tomorrow, OpenAI can come out with some tool that just sort of obliterates my whole business model.
I think just in the history of startups in general, maybe between 2008 and 2015, and whenever a startup started, people would be like, "Oh, you're competing with Facebook or Google. What if they just like obliterate you?"
Yeah.
And the thing that works is just focus and care for the customer. So I think other people might say our competition is Poe or GPT Store or Character AI, but the difference is we're really focused on letting people create authentic versions of themselves that they can scale. That's it. We're not trying to be like the all-inclusive chatbot platform where you can create bots for different reasons. No, we're creating a cloning platform. And that focus is what has led us to get customers who have said, hey, we're not really happy with GPT Store or Poe or Character AI. We really like Delphi because this is how I would speak. And I can share it with these other platforms and I can monetize it. So that's kind of how I think about competition. If there's anyone who's doing exactly what we're doing, I would maybe say personal AI, but I don't think people have taken the specific approach on cloning that we have.
No, we've interviewed a couple, probably 2 or 3 different companies. Not exactly what you do, but the one difference that I saw is exactly what you just said. It's like very personalized. Like if you go on and try to sign up and create a clone, it just it's very your tool is very thorough. It asks you a ton of questions, and like you just said too, those follow-up questions are going to be key. Like if it doesn't know something about you, it's going to ask you questions and even get smarter. So it's
Yeah.
very cool. And can you use your tool for like customer service as well, like a chatbot on a website, or even potentially answering phone calls one day?
Yeah, I mean, if you started creating your clone in Delphi, you'll see my chatbot is in the bottom right corner of Studio. You can ask it questions, you can call him, and I actually get notified whenever you ask my clone a question that it can't answer. So that way I can be like, okay, my clone needs to improve in these areas, and maybe I should reach out
Wow.
to this person.
And what happens if it doesn't know something? Like say if I'm talking to a clone of you and it doesn't know something, how does it respond usually?
We have a strictness score, and the score is like, okay, I want the clone to try to reason on new information based on everything it's been trained on, or I want the clone to just say like, I don't know, sorry about that. So it really depends. There's a full spectrum. I keep mine pretty strict, but some people like the reasoning capabilities, so we leave it option open.
And I see like another use case for this seems like, influencers or celebrities that don't have time to respond to their fan base. If Taylor Swift wants to create her own clone, she could do it on Delphi. Do you have any celebrities that you can share with us, or people that anybody would know that's used your tool? I know you're very early, so if you don't, that's cool. But do you have anyone that's reached out to you that people would know?
Uh, so we haven't fully started our outreach to big name celebrities yet.
Uh-huh.
We have like a DJ Sam Felt, and we have a Real Housewife of New York. Her name is Jill Zarin, which
Awesome.
which is funny. One feature I'm excited about that we're releasing this week is putting your clone in your Instagram DMs, and I think that's going to make a lot of sense for some of these big name celebrities and influencers who just their DMs are just cluttered, and your clone can kind of manage that for you and maybe guide people towards the right place.
So it can auto respond in DMs.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. That's really cool. Like if
Yeah.
anybody has a decent sized Twitter account, they'll know that like replying to people and replying to DMs, it can take you a while. Like every day, I've got maybe close to 10,000 followers on X, and every day before when I sort of while I'm stretching and working before I work out, I just respond to anybody on Twitter that's reached out to me, but that can take like a half hour, and I only have
Take some time.
10,000 followers. It's nothing compared to Kim Kardashian or something. So
Yeah, the amount of DMs she's getting.
yeah, but if they can respond to people, it's going to really increase their brand awareness too, just by doing that alone. People are really going
Exactly.
to think they care about them. So that's awesome. Like, what are your main focuses on growing Delphi? Is it to reach out to like celebrities, or do you have one facet you're trying to focus on right now, like mentorship or celebrities, or is there one area that you're really looking into to grow in?
I think celebrities, I think, is a great niche on its own. As a
Mhm.
startup, um, like if we wanted to start with celebrities, we'd probably have to act more like a talent agency than a startup. So I feel like celebrities is a niche that we'll tackle as we get bigger. Right now, experts and coaches and content creators and secondarily small business owners are the ones that are make sense for how big we are, as we like think about our next round of funding and growing. And from a product perspective, I told you we're planning to have video later this year, so that's top of mind.
Yeah, that'll be really awesome if you can speak with somebody and it sort of looks good enough that you think it's them. That'll be awesome.
Yeah,
Pretty
I
cool.
would love that. I've been onboarding customers manually myself, and I'd love to send my clone to these onboarding calls.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't know, this Dara's like crazy because every single onboarding, I know you've changed things a little bit, but every single person that signs up, he schedules a call with and onboards them personally. So that's incredible, an awesome service for somebody. So, but I'm sure you're getting
Thank
tired of
you.
that as well.
That's ending in 2 weeks. It was
Okay.
8 a.m. to 8 p.m. nonstop meetings can only go so far.
Yeah, I'm sure you're gonna have a party after that. In terms of like, more general questions, in AI in general, what are your thoughts? I mean, there's all these scare tactics out there that AI is going to overtake the world and humans are doomed. What are your thoughts on AI in general, like in those type of situations? Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think it's more going to be a tool to really help humans exponentially get smarter and more efficient at things?
I'm more of an optimist for sure.
Mhm.
Like I understand the bear case, and I would like to say all humans are good, but you definitely have bad actors. But I think that's the real detail. I'm not scared of AI alone. I'm scared of AI in the wrong hands, which ultimately, like being scared of the wrong people leveraging AI for the wrong reasons. I think that's why the conversation of AI being in the hands of like a few companies is scary, because then
Yeah.
you're giving a lot of power to these people. But the other side of the spectrum is scary too. If it's fully open source and democratized, it's much easier that it gets in the wrong hands. So it's a very complicated debate, and I understand both sides. I haven't quite picked a side yet, but I'm definitely leaning more towards optimism and like accelerationism.
Yeah, we can only hope. I think Bill Gates and Sam Altman sat down recently, and that's one thing Bill Gates said. He's like, the one thing I'm scared about is AI gets in the wrong hands. Hopefully it doesn't, but it's going to be interesting because, there's going to be a lot of regulation out there eventually. In the US, it seems like it's all lip service at this point, but the European Union has already implemented some regulations. But it comes to the point where, like, what if one or two countries in the whole world don't regulate at all? That could ruin all regulation for everybody. If every
That's the thing. I don't think the whole world is going to unite on one thing. So Pandora's box is already open, and if that's the mentality we're going to have, we got to accept this new world and figure out how to work with it versus try to like prevent it from happening, because it's already happening.
It's already happening. It's like you can't stop this train. I don't think it's gonna it's gonna go in the direction it wants to go. We can sort of point it where we want it to go, but
Yeah.
it's on the tracks and headed down quickly.
hmm
So in terms of funding, like you mentioned, you've got some backing right now. Can you go into a little bit of details about that, and what are you looking to grow the company in the next year or two?
Yeah, so we raised our seed round from Founders Fund, Lux Capital, X Fund, and Balaji Srinivasan. And we're hoping to raise our Series A later this year. And obviously, we want to have like thousands of paying customers. We want hundreds of thousands of weekly active users on the consumer side learning from clones. And we really want to see like have a narrative about like what are the conversations people are having with clones, and are they actually getting value out of it. That's what we want. Like we don't allow AI girlfriends on our platform because we think that's a net negative for society. We want the clones on our platforms to actually be maybe positive in terms of like teaching people, or you know answering questions or providing companionship in like a positive way. and not necessarily in like an addictive way.
Got it. Well, can someone come on your site right now? Say if they like another hot thing is creating an AI influencer on Instagram, for example. There's like that one one girl from Barcelona that everybody's talking about. Um, and she's got like over 200,000 followers or something like that. Can you go on your platform Delphi and create a influencer based on nothing? So it's not based on you, it's not a clone, but you just want to create an AI bot, for example, based on what you feed it, or is that possible or not?
You technically could right
Mhm.
now. Eventually, we're going to be working on guardrails so that it's more like a Facebook or LinkedIn, where like you can't just create a LinkedIn profile of a fake person.
Okay.
You need like some sort of identity verification, because that's like the focus we're focused on: people and augmenting people, and not just creating fake characters.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Because you're like your whole business model is cloning humans, and it sort of doesn't fit that model.
Yeah, it's just the focus. I think with AI, it's very easy to be like, wow, there's so many opportunities. Let me try to do everything. But that's how you actually end up not being amazing at anything.
Right, right. Your website is very polished. It looks like you've got some great developers working on your platform. How did you, from your last company that you worked at, how did you get started? Like, how did you form the team and put everything together? Because I think a lot of people out there are interested in, how business owners get started and how they create their team.
Yeah, so I was very lucky to meet my co-founder at Open Store. We're very similar. Our values are the same, and I think when you're building a company, everything is rooted on values and the culture you want to build. And that is the biggest filter for hiring. You know, you may be the smartest person in the world, but you don't fit with our values, you're not going to be a good fit. And it's funny because like almost every person on my team that we've hired has come through Twitter. We had, recruiting firms and all this stuff. None of that worked out. It all came through
Yeah.
Twitter. I just started posting. People who resonated with my content reached out, or like I reached out, and that's how they've ended up joining the company.
That's very cool, and it's free, and you don't have to, yeah, pay a huge commission for recruitment. So win-win for everybody. Awesome.
Yeah, people think you put the energy out there, it'll come back to you. And
Mhm.
Twitter is one of those platforms. Is like you can put that energy out there, and you can get investors, you can get employees, maybe girlfriends with that clone post that I did. Who knows?
Another great thing about your company is it sort of markets itself. Like you can just say, well, you can clone yourself. That's good enough right there to get a lot of attention. So
Exactly.
in terms of marketing, is there anything else that you guys are doing? You're on Twitter. What are there any kind of secrets that you can share with the audience that have helped you grow to this point?
I think a focus on brand and values. Like when you stand for something, people take notice. And I think we're very strict about what we stand for as a company, what we don't allow, what we do approve, and you begin to build like a evangelists, and your evangelists will spread your message for you. And the great thing about Delphi is whenever someone creates a clone, they will end up posting it on some social media, and that becomes like a self-marketing growth hack.
Yeah, for sure. So how does that look? Like, say if I want to clone myself and post it on Twitter, is it's just a link, I'd assume, or is it a video of yourself? I mean, I guess you can do it both ways, but how do you guys promote, other people's clones on Twitter, or if I want to promote mine, how does that work?
Yeah, you can post the clone on Twitter. We have like a custom embedding image that will show up when you post it on Twitter. We would like to get to the point where we can make it interactive in Twitter. I know it's possible. We just don't know how to do it yet. Same with Instagram. Some creators will post in their story, "Hey, AMA, ask me anything." But now they can just be like, "Hey, AMA, I'm busy. Ask my clone anything," and it'll have like a little session.
Do you even know how that would work on Twitter? Like, how would you?
It would have to go through the link. It would have to go through the link.
Oh,
But
I see.
with the update we have next week, with the clone being able to respond to DMs, you could just go directly to their Instagram, reply to the Instagram story with a question, and the clone would respond.
Got it. Got it. That's awesome. Very cool. What's your medium term vision? We went over like maybe what the next year you're looking to do, but is the medium term vision do you have anything down that's very complicated to implement on your end that you're looking to do over the next 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, so we have a roadmap for both the supply and demand side of the product. Supply side is pretty obvious. Make it easier to create your clone, make it easier to share your clone, make the video better, the voice calling better. Right now, cloning is great for inbound. So if people are coming your way, they can ask questions. We want to make cloning also great for outbound. The clone can create content, the clone can post, the clone can reach out to people, all in your voice. So that's on the supply side. On the demand side, we'd love to create like a very personalized experience where you land in Delphi, you talk about your life, maybe what you're trying to achieve, some goals, and it'll match you with all of the relevant people that have talked about something similar or that have done something similar. So you can kind of discover people in a way. So that's how we're thinking about both sides of the marketplace. And then as consumers use Delphi and learn from people, they actually end up creating the data needed to create a clone of themselves through their conversations with clones. So right now, cloning is easy for people who have a lot of content. We hope in the future it's easy for everyone.
Sometimes it's hard to wrap my head around all this because there's so much novel and new technology out there that it's really going to change our world in a way that we can't even foresee yet. One of the cool things that I think is really going to start to take off maybe the next 5 years or so is like AI robots. Like Tesla has the Optimus 2 robot that they're working on, and it's something that you could buy for. I think they're selling it for like they're going to sell it for around $20,000 when it's available, and it could come and clean your house and do chores for you, things like that. But that's one thing that maybe you know you can't. This is way down the road, but you could clone yourself and put it in a physical form one day. What do you think about that? Like your physical clone as a robot?
I have thought about it. I don't know if the use case makes sense for a lot of our customers. Maybe if like you're a professor and you want to teach in multiple classrooms physically, that makes sense. Maybe if you're an athlete or like if you're in a profession that it requires physical presence, then it's fine. But like I don't know why I would want a physical clone of myself. I think that would just freak me out.
Right. Yeah, I think this topic always comes up for our podcast, and it's like, are we going to get to the point where we want to talk not to a human being, but we want to talk to AI instead because our AI friend is never going to talk back to us. We're never going to get into fights with the AI friend. They're always going to know everything about us. They're going to understand us perfectly. So, do you think
I hate
that
that.
eventually you hate that? Yeah.
Well, I think about like how this generation, the youngest generation, is obsessed with TikTok. It's just like immediate dopamine rush. They'd rather watch TikTok than go outside or like read a book. They'd rather do the easy thing than the hard thing. So just in a dystopian way, it seems very likely, given that human nature likes easy things with high dopamine, that they will tend to want to talk to AI friends that do not give them hard times, even though that's worse for their professional and personal development.
Oh, 100%. It seems like that's going to happen whether we want it to or not. Just like, social media has taken over our lives and people are on their phones all the time. It's not a good thing. So maybe we're just going to head down that path where like your friends are AI bots. I mean, I hope it doesn't get there. Like one of the things that it would be terrible is, if you have a friend that agrees with you all the time, it's not part of like your human nature. You need to be challenged, right? You need to be
You need to be
challenged by
challenged. Like we need,
yes.
yeah,
You need to be challenged by your wife or your friends, and it sort of makes your relationship stronger in the long term.
100%.
It's going to be really wild to see how all this plays out. And back to Delphi in terms of, because I forgot to ask you this, in terms of pricing, you mentioned it's subscription based, right? Like, can the person that creates the clone um, charge anything they want, or is it directed by you guys?
So we have a free tier for people who want to create a clone, and then there's three price tiers where they pay monthly depending on usage and features. And then if they want to monetize their clone, they can set the price. They can set the number of messages they want to allow per month, the number of minutes for calling, whether to allow texting or Telegram. We're going to be adding Slack as well. I think Slack is really interesting because there's like a lot of coaches who coach executives in companies, and you can imagine them also upselling with their clone for employees to have sessions with in like the Slack channel. So I think that could be something interesting that we're exploring. But yeah, that's how you monetize.
Okay. And obviously it's working because that one guy's making a lot of money so
Yeah,
far. That
yeah.
one use case. And didn't you say that guy, he's really not like even a big influencer? He's sort of just
He has
he,
super followers. He's not a big influencer, but he has. That's the thing. He has people who trust him.
mhm.
And if you have an audience and people trust you for certain information, then they want to ask you questions. People already try to do that. Like you said, they try to DM you on Twitter. They're already in the motion of trying to do this thing, and this product is just kind of like a layer to handle that inbound.
Sure. And like, do you envision like how this is going to go? Like, say if it does take off and everybody starts to make their own clone of themselves, is there any like unforeseen things that are going to happen because of that? If we get to that point that you've thought about?
Well, I think there's a whole issue of privacy we need to figure out. Like, if you want to train your clone on text or WhatsApp, so that it knows more about like how you think about things, there's a risk of that data being, available to anyone who talks to your clone. So that's one
I
thing. That's a problem it's a problem we need to solve. How can you train a clone to make it better on data without exposing that data? Um, but something I'm really excited about in like the long distance feature of Delphi is simulating conversations. And what I mean by that is if everyone has a clone, you could have like Delphi recruiting, where you send your clone and talk to a million candidates, and your clone tells you, hey, like these are the people that would be great for your company. Or you could do Delphi dating, where you have your clone talk to a million other clones and says, hey, these are the people that you might get along with. So I think there's a lot of interesting things you can do with simulation of like activities.
Now, if we do get to that point where there's, you've got 1,000 clones talking to, thousands of different people, is there a point where the clones will talk to each other and then give you feedback, like on whatever you need?
Yeah. I mean, like, clone, I want you to talk to Marcus Aurelius, for example, and like
Mhm.
have a conversation about this subject and tell me what you guys found out.
Wow. And that's something is that something you can do right now, or?
You probably could do right now, but
uh
it's not easy to do right now. Like, we haven't productized it yet.
Like, you can pretty much do anything with Delphi as long as the product has an API can talk to. Is that true?
You mean in terms of actions or like letting the clones do more than just?
Yeah, like, say, like you said, you can DM somebody on Instagram, right, with Delphi.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so as long as, like, the product you're trying to integrate with has an API, then you should be able to integrate Delphi with
Integrate.
that if
Exactly.
there's a demand for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And even if there's not, someone could probably integrate it themselves via Zapier or something, some product like that, I'd imagine.
Yeah. We for Telegram, for example,
Mhm.
like we'll have the customer create a bot and they just put in their API key. That way, we don't have to handle it all in house.
Can you go into the back end tech that, I know a lot of companies have their own secret sauce, but can you go into the tech that you're using to create these in the first place? Like, are you using what kind of LLMs are you using? What kind of code are you using? Things like that.
Yeah, so we're a multi-model architecture. We use Mistral, OpenAI, Claude, and the in trying to recreate how a human mind works, how you store and retrieve and like manage the data is actually almost more important than the model because you're trying to replicate how the brain works. So when you talk to me, I am kind of interpreting what you're saying, what you're trying to figure out what your intention is, trying to figure out what's relevant, trying to think about our past relationship history, and I'm planning ahead for our conversation in a few steps. So that all comes into play in my final response. And those are all like different models. And that's kind of how the brain works. We have a bunch of different pattern recognition areas in our brain that kind of takes different parts of a conversation and relays them as we speak. I take a lot of inspiration from Ray Kerr as well. He wrote a book called How to Create a Mind, which is kind of what we're trying to do.
Good book to read. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you route like, depending on what the person asks or what the person's saying, do you route that to a different LLM? Like, depending on what they're saying is really
Depending on their
good.
intention. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes. And it's not the LM is really good. It's just like we have different models for different things. And sometimes we redirect them based on the attention.
Is there anything else that you wanna let everybody know about your product that maybe, you know, people don't think about with a cloning tool? I mean, that's new in and of itself, but is there anything else that, you can share?
On the consumer side, I use
Yeah.
Delphi almost every day. Like I will call Keith or like someone who's relevant. We have this feature called Quick Ask, which is kind of like what I described, where you can ask a question and it'll show all the relevant people that you can talk to. And I recommend trying out the calling feature. And I'm obviously biased, but I use it pretty often. And it's pretty useful when you want like tactical advice.
So, like, who do you use it every day, but, like, how do you use it specifically?
Like maybe I have a situation and I want to talk through a specific circumstance,
Uh-huh.
and there are people who maybe have achieved something that I want to achieve, and so talking to them kind of helps. And the more I use Delphi, the more the Delphi platform knows about me. So those conversations start with, okay, Dara's the CEO of Delphi. I already have this context, so I don't need to like fill it in on what it doesn't know already.
Awesome. And then you're saying on the consumer side and the other side, there's something as well, the
Yeah, the clone side. So if you're interested in creating a clone, we have this readiness score that shows you how accurate your clone is in representing you. And so when you create your clone, you want to get that score to like 70%, and then it's usually pretty good. And you can always add more. The more, the better. But if you want your audience to use your clone, we've seen best practices as like putting it in your Twitter bio, your Instagram bio, marketing it not as a, hey, talk to an AI version of me, but hey, imagine if you could have 24/7 access to my knowledge or my content and it's personalized to you. So I think when you're talking about products in general, you should never focus it on the technology, because that's going to get short-term interest but not long-term enduring, retention. You should talk about the value that it's going to give to people. And that's what we've seen do the best for the clones that are doing well.
Yeah, there's so many like, I follow a bunch of people on YouTube for finance or for web development, things like that. So that would be a good use case, because in those use cases, those people know something very specific through their experience over the years that nobody else knows. And you could ask them questions on Delphi if they have an account, and it will, you don't have to call them or pay them or anything. I mean, not pay them like $200 an hour. You just pay the subscription fee. So, um,
Yeah.
very, very, very awesome. Is there anything else you want to promote right now? Feel free to do it, Dara.
Uh, no, I think we have a product. If you're interested in cloning yourself, let me know. You can do it on our website. I respond very quickly to my email. So if you have any questions, my email is dara@delphi.ai.
Everyone out there, please subscribe to our email newsletter. It's fry-ai.com/subscribe. We write interesting news stories every day about AI. And then on Sunday, we will write a long form article on Delphi as well. That should be out in probably 2 to 3 weeks. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.